Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1049 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today I'm welcoming back Erica Forsyth, and Erica and I are going to do something a little different than what we've done in the past. We're going to build an entire series around an idea. That series, as you can tell from the title, is about parenting. It's going to expand beyond type 1 diabetes, but at the same time, I think that parenting skills and diabetes parenting skills go hand in hand. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan. If at any point in this series you think, I'd like to check Erica out, she has a great website, ericaforsyth.com. She sees patients virtually and in person if you're a California resident. Check out her website to see what states Erica is licensed in. If you'd like to save 40% off of your entire order at CozyEarth.com, you can do that with the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout. And to get a free year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first order, use my link, drinkag1.com/juicebox. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by US Med. US Med is the place where Arden gets her diabetes supplies from, her Dexcom and her Omnipods. But they have much more than that. You'll learn more about them when you check them out at usmed.com/juicebox or by calling 888-721-1514. You can get your supplies the same way we do from US Med. Okay. So just so you know, I've hit record already.
Okay.
All right. So where do we want to start with this? You and I have never done this way before. But this is a pretty common thing that Jenny and I do. So Jenny and I used to brainstorm privately about series. And then one day I said, why don't we record the brainstorming and make that the first episode of the series? That way people can listen, decide if it's something they're interested in, and get a fair idea for the direction we're going to go in. So you and I are going to try that.
Let's go.
Yes. Now, I was
Let's
worried.
try it.
I was worried because you are a careful speaker.
Yes.
But I don't think that matters. I think we can do this. So I'll give you a little bit of my thought and then we'll figure it out. So I was thinking we could do sort of a parenting list. I don't know. The first way it popped in my head was, what are the worst parenting mistakes that you've seen in your job? And I thought through that there's something. And then I started thinking about it a little more. I thought, well, maybe there are also good things that you've seen that are valuable. And I don't know what we'll call the episode yet. I think we'll figure that out as we're going. But I'm wondering if we couldn't build a list of things that you have seen that have been valuable, things that you've seen that have been detrimental, and maybe a little bit of what's in between. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to open up a file because you're going to be the thinker today, so I'll be the typer.
Okay. I think it might be important to note before we start listing, parenting mistakes, communication mistakes, errors, just to say the obvious that parenting is one of the most challenging things ever in life. And speaking as a parent, I am far from perfect and make these mistakes myself. But I'm sure, Scott, you never do. But
my God, I think my whole life is a parenting mistake. No, I would imagine. Wow, you know what? I meant that to be funny, but it might be true. No, I don't mean just me. I mean somebody parented somebody, made a mistake, led to another thing that led to me, that led to blah blah blah. Maybe it is all a parenting mistake. But no, I think that. So I don't think about it the same way. I don't think of things I do as mistakes or wins or something like that. But I do think it's a continual learning process, but that there is a sweet spot. And no matter where you jump in, if you're not ready, I don't know how to put this. You're going to be doing micro damages that you may never be aware of, or that may not like rear their head for, I don't know, 10 years or 2 generations. I have no idea. But it's such a bizarre feeling to think that I have the ability to do something that will create a problem or a, I don't know, a good thing for somebody that I might never even meet. It's super interesting, So,
generationally, yes.
yeah, it's crazy,
The
right?
generational patterns.
Yeah.
And I think even what you said, you might not be ready. Most of us, or most parents aren't. And how would you define ready? What does it mean to feel ready to parent? That's another conversation too. But I think it is an evolution of the learning, and maybe mistakes is even the wrong word to use. And I think the first step would be the awareness piece, right? You might be acting or parenting in a way that you are not aware that could be causing pain or suffering or damage, but that also might be a result of your own pain and suffering as a child as well.
Let's do something first before we move forward.
Okay.
Because you're just right. I don't think of it as a mistake either. Like I had kids when I was fairly young. I would be a different parent if those kids came out today. Right. But if you, I don't know, use the magic wand idea where you took the thoughts in my head now and put them in the thoughts in my head when I was in 20, then I think overall things might have turned out better. Like, I don't say that they turned out poorly. There may have been, I don't know, better decisions made in there by me. But if you make me 52 years old and give me a baby right now, well, then I'm going to make some better decisions. And then some things aren't going to be nearly as good because I'm not going to have the same energy or et cetera. Right. But I guess the idea is to share with people things that we've seen in our own personal lives or that you've seen clinically that with reasonable certainty led to something. But I don't want to call them mistakes. So let's find better words and you'll be good at this. So what do we call it? Because I said mistakes and wins, which was way wrong. Like it just are not smooth. What are we really talking about?
Patterns, maybe harmful decisions, harmful patterns, inconsistent. Yeah, I guess patterns is really because we might have a really good method of disciplining, and then we might forget or we might be tired. But it's really, we're talking about the over time saying or doing the same thing without changing, or without either having the awareness or desire or the know-how of how to change and affect positive change in your relationship with your child.
So somebody asked me the other day that we were talking about like interpersonal communication. And I said that one of the things about me that I'm proud about as a matured person is that I'm incredibly consistent. Like, and that person said back to me, "You're very authentic." And I said, "Well, that may be, but I'm consistent. If you ask me a question at 8 a.m. or midnight, you're going to get the same answer from me." That, if it happens on Wednesday or Sunday or December and everybody's have that Christmas anxiety or whatever, I'm basically a common sense person. So I don't get ruled a lot by the things going on around me, if that makes sense. And I think consistency is incredibly important for anything. For parenting, I think consistency is why the podcast does well. And I don't even just mean like what you're hearing. I mean, the way the podcast gets made when it comes out, what people expect, right? And that's a trust. Like, think of that for a second. If you consistently make the podcast, people trust that this thing is going to happen. That's what consistency brings to parenting, is this comfort, right? Like, I hear my wife discuss sometimes how she never knew what was going to happen. And she once told me how she felt manipulated as a child when, if they were acting up, her mom would say, "Hey guys, if you're good for the rest of the day, we're going to go to McDonald's." And then no matter how good they were or weren't, they were not going to McDonald's. Like, and so it never happened. So it was like this carrot on a stick that wasn't real, but the kids didn't know it. Mom probably couldn't even afford to go to McDonald's. She just said a thing she thought would shut them up for a couple of hours. You know what I mean? But interestingly, as an adult 4 decades later, that feeling that it bred in my wife, I think it still torments her. Mm-hmm. The idea that you can't trust people when they say things to you sometimes. So, you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and that might also create their narrative as a child growing into an adult that no matter what I do, I'm never good enough. Okay. And that's pretty common.
See, like that's so cool that you said that. Not that it happens to people, but that,
right.
Like even a thing that, listen, again, we get in a time machine, go find my wife's mom 50 years ago and say to her, what were you doing when you did that? She's probably going to say, look, I was out of my mind. I had 4 kids, like I needed them to stop. I had stuff to do, like whatever. If you said to her then that action turned one of your kids into somebody who doesn't believe their parents and that has ripple effects in their own life. And by the way, the thing you just said, and by the way, if we put 4 more voices on this conversation, 4 more people might come up with 4 other things that come from that. That's the kind of stuff you can't know while you're doing it. So
that's right.
There has to be some sort of consistency to your decision making to stop these unintended and undesired outcomes that, I don't know. That's it, right? Like, okay, but still good conversation. But we did not come up with better words than good or bad. So
behaviors.
What if we just said positive? I just need language for my conversation or I'm going to fumble over it. So I'm going to say positive, and for the moment, I'm going to say unintended.
I like that.
Okay. Or is it intended and unintended? Positive, intended. Well, everything
unintentionally, unintentional, unintended.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe the conversation is going to reveal the words. So, and maybe the people listening right now are yelling a word in their car.
They might be.
Like,
yes.
Scott,
please share it.
How could you not have thought of this? Okay. So I know your brain doesn't work like this. So we'll get this out of the way first.
Okay.
Unintended things that people do that you see over and over again that don't lead to good outcomes.
I think we could start with what you shared, the example of your wife, the inconsistent discipline / motivation.
Okay.
Just like the if you're good, then this will happen. And no matter how good the child was, they never got it. But I also, you could see the converse of that is no matter what happens, the child gets the McDonald's.
Okay. So
So it's just inconsistent follow through in the discipline / motivation.
Or sprinkling some sort of praise or gifts on them for no reason.
Correct.
It's just as bad. So, what's that idea? It's just kind of like blindly.
Treating. Usually people say nowadays, like everyone gets a trophy parenting.
Okay. All right. That's perfect.
Praising for every little thing and not, which could be, again, going back to maybe as a child, you were not affirmed for any kind of behavior and only were disciplined for negative. And so maybe as a parent, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to flip that and I'm going to praise the heck out of my child because I never got that as a kid.
I'm calling that seesaw overcorrections.
Nice.
because that's really how I think of it. Like, right, you grow up being treated poorly, and then you want to correct that action. So as a parent yourself, you overcorrect, and then instead of doing the right thing, you end up just making a different mistake.
Correct.
Right. So, okay.
A different choice in how to parent. Yeah, different choice.
But it's not just a choice, right? Because you can say, I'm going to be more positive than my parents were. But what happens when it gets into that space where your kid walks around believing that everything they do is perfection? Like, right? Like, that's an overcorrection.
Yes. And you might see if a child gets in trouble for, let's say, making, something at school, maybe the parent might have a challenging time acknowledging that the child could do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great example. Like, a teacher says, hey, your kid did this. And you go, my kid doesn't do those things. What are you talking about? Right. But I even mean we all know a child who believes in themselves more than they should. And I don't mean that you shouldn't believe in yourself. I mean, like obviously you want to instill, a good self-confidence in people, and self-esteem. But when there's this belief that there's nothing you do that's ever, wrong or even worth questioning, it's how you make an asshole. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and just it's very, maybe a black and white thinking or rigid thinking and perspective of themselves, where they cannot accept that they might make an error. This is rare. I would say we usually see more children and teens and adults with lower self-esteem, right? It's rare to see the bravado kid, but it does happen.
Yeah. Well, not to say that maybe those kids don't end up in therapy, but they are out in the world having a bad experience, whether they know it or not. Maybe they're pretending it's not a bad experience because I'm terrific and you must understand how amazing I am. So, but I have an example I've used in the podcast before. I'm not going to belabor it here, but I've met a kid like that. He's the only child I've ever met in my entire life that I couldn't find a way to like. It was really something. And then you look back at the parenting structure, and there's one parent who's kind of quiet in the background, very kind. I've never had a bad interaction with a person once in my life. Then there was another parent who was a monster. But the monster was the one pumping up the kid. And it was interesting. Like a nasty person, I guess is the way I want to say it. Like you could see, I don't know how to put this. Like when you're speaking to them, you can see ill intentions behind their eyes. Like they're calculating everything. They're sure they're better than you, and everyone around you. They've put this into the kid, and the other spouse seemed too kind to do anything about it, if that makes sense. So then that's another thing you could do. I'm still going to just stick with wrong for now because I can't figure out what to say. But so you could overpower the other parent and not allow their input. So
I'd say having a united front would be the positive maybe spin on that. So being united in parenting, the decisions you make, you might have different opinions and perspectives about certain situations, but ultimately the bottom line you agree on. And that is around the boundaries that you're setting for your child. So I'd say boundary setting or having lack of boundaries.
Is it? I'm sorry that people are going to hear me typing during this one. But is it important that the kids believe that we're always united, whether we are or not? Or is it important to let them know that there are disagreements and we've found a resolution? US Med prides themselves on the white glove treatment that they offer to customers. And those customers number over 1 million since 1996. US Med is the #1 distributor for Freestyle Libre systems nationwide. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They accept Medicare nationwide and over 800 private insurers. Did you know that they are the #1 specialty distributor for Omnipod DASH? But they also have Omnipod 5. They're the #1 fastest growing tandem distributor nationwide. They've got the T-Slim. You know Control IQ, right? Go check it out. Dexcom. What do I type about this? #1 rated distributor in Dexcom customer satisfaction surveys. And they can get you the Dexcom G6 or G7. By the way, Don't want a Dexcom, want a Libre? Libre 2 and Libre 3. That's Libre, Dexcom, Omnipod, Tandem, testing supplies. They've got some insulins, usmed.com/juicebox. Go check it out. Or call 888-721-1514. You can get your free benefits check by going to the website or calling the 800 number. US Med always provides 90 days worth of supplies and fast and free shipping. Like I said before, they carry everything from insulin pumps to diabetes testing supplies and the latest CGMs like the Freestyle Libre 3 and the Dexcom G7. What are you waiting for? 888-721-1514 or go to my link, usmed.com/juicebox. Or both.
I would say both. And for you to model for your child that you and your partner can have disagreements, but you're modeling how to disagree, right? To how to have a conversation around, well, I think Johnny should be able to go to the thing. And the other parent says, no, I don't think so. And then you can model for them, why do you have these different perspectives? And ultimately, maybe quote unquote, one parent wins in that conversation, but ultimately the parents the adults are modeling to the child how to have a disagreement and communicate in a healthy way and landing in a decision that may or may not be that they both are agreeing to, but they've agreed how they came to the decision.
Mm-hmm. So what I put here for under positive is model communication resolution.
Yes.
Okay. But at the same time, is it not also important to let them know that everyone's not always going to agree?
Yes. Not everyone's going to agree, but I think, the classic example that you would hear is I go to mommy and ask for the lollipop and she says no, but then I can go to daddy and I know that daddy's going to say yes to the lollipop. Mm-hmm. So children learn those patterns. And so you want to be united in some of the basics, I would say, kind of foundational boundaries. Yeah.
But when mommy pulls daddy into a coat closet to tell him he's an idiot for giving the kid the pomp, like, is it okay for the kid to see that? Like, hey, he can't have that. Not to give that to him. Like, for my money, that's okay. I'm okay with age appropriate. By the way, everything's age appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah. But for my money, it's all right for one of us to be right and one of us to be wrong. Like statically correct and incorrect in a situation. It's all right for one person to speak up. If the person who's wrong disagrees, they need to be free to, discuss and give light to their thought process. Well, mm-hmm. I don't, dinner's not for 3 hours. I don't think the lollipop's going to hurt them. I'm okay with that because, and do those, because I believe those interactions help people to learn what they don't want to be when they're adults. I know, yeah. I think positive modeling is incredibly important. And I think that following through and, a number of other things that we will talk about in a minute, but like those things are all important for kids to see, but I don't have a problem with them seeing things not going well. Like, I think my children are completely aware of my wife's and my shortcomings. Mm-hmm. And, to me, what they learned from them is maybe my dad does this. I have a personality like him. I'm going to try not to do that. But big picture, we're still a successful family unit. And that, we exist in the world well and everything. And I don't know, because I think that what I see sometimes from younger parents is an attempt at perfection. Mm-hmm. And then anything less than perfection is a dumpster fire in their mind. And therefore, life is terrible. Everything's horrible. My kid's going to grow up to be a meth head. Like it goes from 0 to 100 really quickly. So under negative, I guess what is it that perfectionism does to children? That's my question, right?
I think leading them to believe, maybe there's unrealistic expectations. I think that there's, as a parent, whether there's a conflict and we can model conflict resolution, it's okay to have disagreements. I totally agree with all of those things. Mm-hmm. I think we are always able to model how to apologize and say, you know what, whether it's a single parent thing or parents made it, felt like they mishandled a situation. I think the best parenting moves we can do is to say, gosh, we had this conversation and I blew up at you, or, we blew up at each other in trying to make this, figure out this decision. And, we're sorry. Next time we're going to try and do it this way. Because then you get to model to your kid that, hey, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to say things incorrectly. And then I'm going to apologize, even if you're 3 years old. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful intervention or, practice.
I'm going to put apology under a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote arguing under negative. So for my money, arguing with children like you are a child, like,
oh,
you know what I mean? Like losing your shit and then finding yourself going, oh, wow, I'm as crazy as they are right now. like that. Like,
well, and it happens. It happens.
Yeah, no. I've been involved in it.
Yes, same.
But it's one of those things that you do have to stop yourself about. Also, on the apology thing, I want to be clear about this. You apologize when you're wrong, but apologizing can't be the scapegoat for your bad behavior.
Yes.
Right? Does that make sense? You can't willfully keep doing the same thing wrong over and over again and then running back and saying, I'm so sorry, because it's meaningless after a while.
Because ultimately, and I just read this quote, someone who focuses on boundaries, that if you continue to do the same patterned, same behavior, and then you continue to apologize, ultimately what you're really seeking is to kind of seek that comfort for whatever shame you're dealing with, right? As opposed to apologizing to the person that you offended, you're doing the behavior over, you're asking for forgiveness, you're apologizing, and the person's saying, no, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But that's about you. So I think going to that first step of awareness, am I doing this and asking for forgiveness and apologizing 5 times a day? Then I would look at that. If it's,
and so I added that doing work on yourself as an adult under a positive thing. And to that, I mean, if you're having the same argument over and over again, if you're having the same thing that makes you upset, you have to remove yourself from the unit for a minute and go, why am I doing that? Mm-hmm. And so being willing to listen to a partner or your kid, for some insight into yourself is important, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for insight into yourself, but you first have to make the decision. Like, what do they say? Recognizing the problem's the first step or something like that. Like, so you have to figure out what the problem is first, and then say, I want to fix it. And if you can't find a path to that, then you have to go to trusted people and say, hey, I do a thing. Do you have any idea why I do that? Or what have you noticed? Like that kind of stuff. And of course, hopefully you have somebody to go to that you can trust, who will have your best thing, take care of you in that situation, and give you a good, honest answer. Also, they might not know. You may be married to a moron. I don't know. Like some of you are. My wife is, Erica. So no. Erica won't let you say anything bad. That's your therapist side. I wish I knew you as a real person and not as a therapist.
Well, hopefully I'm similar.
I want to hear one day when I go, my wife is married to one, and you go, oh yeah, no, I see it. But I mean, that's really important. That the idea that, I guess, seeing yourself as accurately as you can is a real kind thing you can do for your children.
And really difficult without either the awareness, desire, and it takes courage. I mean, it takes a lot of courage, and you desire to be authentic, right? With who you are. And so to reach out and ask for insight or feedback, seeking feedback from your children, from your partner, from your coworkers, from your close friends. I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, when is the last time I asked other people that, or I heard other people ask me that? It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do to seek that feedback.
Yeah. One of the problems with being, Eric, I'm going to use a word that makes me feel weird to say, but one of the problems with being present is that is that life requires that from you as well. And you also might be tired or sick or hungry or any number of other things. And then there's these moments. Like one of the things I had trouble with when I was younger was, if something happens that needs attention, like right in this moment, if we get past this moment, it's going to dissipate. Then all it's going to be left is the bad thing that happened, right? Like the opportunity to fix it is gone, but you can't literally stop.
Yeah.
That I hate that, because it feels like, I don't know. It feels like there's like a Geiger counter and it's moved. Sometimes it moves towards, we're all going to blow up. And sometimes it moves towards, don't worry, everything's fine. And once in a while you see it move towards, it's going to blow up, and you go, oh, I could bring it back to, it's going to be fine. But you're on the way out the door that way, and I'm on the way out the door this way. And then it multiplies. Because instead of fixing it, you get in your car and you're like, she always does that. And but now you're mad, right? Like, and then she's in the car going, my mom was right. I got to get out of this. And and that just keeps growing, and the counter goes the wrong way when it doesn't have to. I hope that made sense. But that's that. So a positive thing you can do is, I'm just going to say, stop, drop, and roll for now. And then we'll figure out a different way. Maybe stop,
I like that.
How about stop, drop, and talk? There we go. Yeah.
And take a break. I mean, maybe the stop, drop, and roll. I like you're kind of, before it's about to explode, and you could feel it in your body. Your mind is racing, you're heated, things are being said quickly. Practicing just knowing when that happens is just, okay, stop. And particularly if you're in front of the kids, to stop. And it's not going to be solved. Nothing's going to be, but that's the best thing you could do for you and your partner and your children, is to stop and pause.
Yeah. And the extension of what I said is that you should speak to each other when you're calm. So I think maybe the thing to do there is to make an agreement while it's heated that we're going to come back to this later when we're not busy and when we're calmer. And never say the word calm to your wife. Use a different word. There's a marriage tip from me to you.
Yeah.
Also, my wife was yelling at me recently, and as I was standing there trying to figure out what happened, in my mind, like, she's like, "What are you making that face for?" And I couldn't say to her, "I'm trying to figure out how this happened." But like, and then later, I'm going to say this. People are going to be upset with me. I don't care. I've made myself a promise. I've been married for 26 years. There are 3 days during my wife's monthly cycle that I should not talk to her about important or emotional things. And yet sometimes when it starts to happen, I can hear the voice in my head go, "Yo, man, not now." And then there's another voice in my head that goes, "She's wrong. Just tell her, she'll understand." And then 30 minutes later, I'm going, "Whoa, what was I doing? What did I do?" And so, again, I'm not saying women are not in control of themselves. I'm saying that my wife, my personal wife, has a heightened emotional state. It goes about 3 days. On one of those days, she likes me a lot. And then on the other 2 days, if you start to try to have like a deep conversation with her, her mind kind of goes to all the things that are wrong. Like, and she gets a little like melancholy about it. And it's just not the right time to talk to her. There's also times it's not the right time to talk to me too. And I'm sure it's got to do with my hormones probably as well. But my point is, my greater point is that you are not it doesn't matter. It could be you And what was that British guy who was so smart during World War II and everybody listened to him? Why am I not thinking of his name? This is ridiculous. Heavy guy, cigar, Churchill.
Winston Churchill.
It could be you and Churchill against my wife on the wrong day. and she's going to leave believing that you and Winston Churchill are idiots and that everything is bad. Like, it's just, it's the wrong day to speak to her about that. And I know that. And I still, once in a while, I step in it like a booby trap. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? But that goes for your kids too. There are times you should not push things with people, is my greater point. Right? I was trying to be amusing there for a minute, but you can't push things with people. They're not always ready for it. And what you're going to get out of them is not a give and take conversation. What you're going to get out of them is whatever horribleness is inside of them that day, they are going to put it out into the world. And everyone does that. Male, female, happy, sad, doesn't matter. People are going to do that. So you have to be good at choosing time and place to have conversations without letting it get past, so far past when it happened that it's now push that needle too far to one side and you can't get it back anymore. You can make a fixable problem unfixable by not going after it and discussing it, and you can make a fixable problem unfixable by discussing it at the wrong time.
Yes.
Took me a while to get to that, but I think that's what I mean.
And that goes, I know we're kind of tutoring into, the communication pros and cons patterns. But I think what you're getting at is not only being aware of your audience, right? And what they may or may not be going through, whether you are knowing it or not, whether it's the cycle or the end of the day or, whatever else is going on, but also being aware of your state as well. And so as you're entering into the conversation with your partner, with your child, and you're addressing something that's maybe beyond just whether it's a possible conflict or ask, to just be checking yourself, having that awareness of how am I entering into this conversation and how is the audience, the person that I'm speaking to, where are they at emotionally?
Okay.
And
so what are some good traits of good parents? So engaged, communicative, I think being a good listener makes you a better person, better parent in general. What else?
I think modeling as much as you can healthy behavior holistically, not just how you communicate, but doing self-care. We've talked a bit about that over the years because we know that parenting is 24/7. And even as you're working or managing other things, you're thinking about your kids, or you're thinking about their blood sugar. And so it is so important for your kids to see you taking care of yourself in a way that you might face the guilt or anything else. But I know, sorry, we're sticking to just topics. I go into
You're fine. Keep
examples.
Talking. No, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing today.
Okay.
Just pretend nobody's listening to us and we're trying to figure out how we want to put the series together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a pro would be to take that self-care, take the time out so that you can be more emotionally present when you are physically with them. And you're not running through the, brush your teeth, clean your room, pre-bolus, all those good things.
Yeah. So I asked people online about things they've seen. So I'm going to spend the rest of this time talking about them and then pulling out nuggets of what they've said. Although
nice.
I also want to throw in for myself, being a martyr or overly dramatic is really not beneficial at all. It's a mess. You should not do that. Okay. So, so this person says that good parenting is acknowledging a child's feelings, no matter how irrational they may seem. Does that seem good to you?
Validate with a capital V. Yes.
Okay. So validate. I like that you're going to be able to pull the words out of their thoughts. My parents would restrict sweets. And then when I started sneaking food and would get caught, they would shout at me for 10 minutes, which just taught me to hide it better. So what's the takeaway from that?
I would say realistic and healthy boundaries, expectations around eating. Flexible, I'd say having flexibility.
Be flexible. Got it. Okay, so I got from that, I got unrealistic boundaries and expectations. On the bad side, I put be flexible. On the good side, oh, this is going to work. Okay, hold on a second. I'm a single mom. I get no support. I'm the sole provider. One time my son was in this place where he would tell me he was going to live with his dad every time he was upset with me. I blew up once and I said, go ahead and call him and see if he'll come get you. Tell him to pay for your insurance and all of your diabetes supplies. And let's see how long you stay alive. And she said, felt like a dick move and I still feel bad about it today. But there's a pro and a con in there. It's painful. It's for all of them, right? Because you can hear in that statement, she's struggling. The kid is being a kid and saying the worst thing they can think to say. But then she tells the kid, look, that guy doesn't care about you as much as I do. And if that's true, it's horrible for the kid. If it's false, it's horrible for the dad and the kid. And no matter what, it's not good for the mom. So what did she do? What did she mean to do? Hard. What did she mean to do that she could have done differently? That's, I think, how we have to attack that.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, just to speak to her, obviously, I know she's probably shaming herself or, she's feeling badly about that. Obviously, exhausted physically, emotionally. And so the comment came out and it would be repairable if that is if that's a new type of conversation. If it's a common theme, I would encourage her. So what sorry, I'm not answering your question.
That's sorry, because you're helping therapy. Me answer. You're helping me answer it. Here's what I take from that. Okay. You can never be degrading of your spouse. Like to your child, like it's their dad, like they are that they look at that person or that woman, mother or father, and they feel like they're connected to that person. I'm partly you. If he's a piece of shit, then I'm a piece of shit. Like I think to me that's the biggest mistake in there.
I'd say if there's one thing that when I'm working with children and parents who are divorced, that is one of the most challenging, I know, but highly effective rules to follow is to not speak poorly about the child's other, parent when they're with you, I think that's really, really hard, but that's more about your own, that's between her and the dad.
Right. I also think that they're, taking her at her word in this, she's being honest. And in a more age-appropriate situation, I don't know how old this kid is, but under 18, obviously. But in a more age-appropriate situation, I don't know that it's like if there's a parent that really is that much of a ne'er-do-well and not helpful, then it's not wrong for them to know that. But I think you have to couch it to them in a specific way. Your dad, blah blah blah. Your mom, blah blah blah. It's not they're trying or like to, I think they're working on it, that kind of thing. Even if it's not true, I mean, them knowing that the person isn't living up to expectations the kid's got to know that, right?
Right. So, and I would also wonder, thinking about her comment saying whenever she would ask him to do something that he didn't want to do, he would threaten or to say, I want to go live with dad. And so maybe she had tried various different ways to problem solve every time he would make that comment. And it got to the breaking point of like, fine, go. And so I guess that it's hard to kind of say what could she have done differently, not knowing that journey of what happened all along the way and how she tried to connect, problem solve with her son every time he would make that threat. If that makes sense. Yeah. But because there's something going on in the son as well. That's just a complicated, hard one. I think trust me, this other one's terrible. So
So there are more than
Oh,
a few people who, as adults, are saying in this thread, like, I was beaten for a number of different things. My room not being clean when my parents were not good at keeping our house clean. So even that, like, so taking the hitting out of it for a second, you can't punish your children for your crime because you feel bad about it. So you are a collection of neurons and bacteria and all the things that make you up, and you made a baby that is probably very likely like you, and then you look up and that baby's messy like you are. You don't want to be messy, so you're going to try to save them from it. And so I don't know where the lesson is in that, except to say that the apple, you can't yell at the apple for falling next to the tree it fell off of. Like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, that's that.
I think, yes.
Also, I'm going to write no hitting on my list.
Yes, yes. No hitting.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, if you have that awareness, the things that maybe irritate you or aggravate you the most in your children are most likely the things that you don't necessarily like about in yourself. And so that's often why they might be frustrating. Like if your kid is really stubborn and you see that stubbornness at play when you're asking them to clean their room, that might really irk you and you might not know how to respond to that. And that's something to say, well, gosh, maybe I'm really stubborn in these ways. I mean, this is kind of a simpler example, but to have that awareness of like, why am I triggered so easily when my child does or says X, Y, or Z? It might be because you're tired and stressed, but it also might be something within you that you haven't quite either understood or faced or expressed, going back to the grace and compassion towards yourself for why you're that way.
This person said screens. It bothers them when people abandon their children on some sort of piece of electronics. To that lady.
I was going to say one of the, just having healthy technology boundaries, which could be connected to also having, quality time.
Too much. And quality time means anything, right? It means together.
It means together, and it means having that connection and
connected time, quality connected time
where your child or even teenager knows that you are attuned to them. And I think one thing that gets in the way of this is that we think it has to be this long, fabulous, planned event. But it can be you walk in the door, and maybe we've talked about this before, but you walk in the door from work or out of your office and you spend 5 minutes making eye contact, connecting with your kid. That builds attachment, connection, and will feel like quality time for both of you.
Okay.
Or it's spending 7 minutes outside playing catch. It can be small segments of that quality time that builds up over time.
Do you think that parents can be friends with their children and parent them at the same time?
That's a good question and hard. I think you can be friendly and have fun friend-like moments. But where, I guess it would depend on how you define being a friend as a parent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean like smoke meth with her, but like, I see what you're saying. But what you say like brings up, there's a person here who says, look, I'm very friendly with my daughter. We're buddies, but people say you shouldn't do that, but I like her. So I don't know that you can't be friendly with your kids. You just, I guess the way to put it is I'm very friendly with my children. And we talk about, like, I may or may not have made a weird off-color comment to an x-ray technician today who laughed like hell and then said something even funnier afterwards that I'm not going to tell you about. And then I texted my son because I thought it was hilarious. But that's fine. But at the same time, even at 23 years old and taller than me and stronger than me, my son knows I am not fucking around. When the shit is happening, I'm his dad. When Arden was in college for the first year, she came home, or we went to see her during a break or something. She's talking about this kid she met that was doing this like crazy thing with money or something like that. And Arden said to me, "You would kill me if I did that." And she's like, "I would never do that." Like and what I got out of that was there are expectations, right? There are rules, lines, and I know if I cross too far over them, there's going to be an actual consequence. And I don't want that to happen. So that's, I don't think that's not why she does it. I think she doesn't do it because we kind of raised her in that direction. But she does know that if it happened, it wouldn't be okay. Like, I wouldn't just be like, okay. And, I would do my job at that point, which is kind of how I see it, is because nobody wants to beat, like, it's not fun. Parenting sucks, in case people are wondering. It's not a ton of fun. Like, the love thing's the only thing that pays you back, really. The rest of it's really thankless. And, but like, you still got to do the thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be rules, and you also have to know, I think you also have to know that sometimes you make up rules when you're a younger parent, because they were things you did. You have to be, you said be flexible. You have to be able to be flexible and go, you know what? I've been saying this, but that's not necessary. Like, maybe the times have changed. Maybe my kid is different than I was when I was being parented for a number of different reasons. You have to adjust. But adjusting doesn't mean like moving the line so that the kid can get away with anything they want, right? Adjusting means like reasonable adjustments.
And I think what, in your example with Arden, there's been consistency, right? So over time, she has learned that you love her. You guys can be playful and friends-like, but she knows there are boundaries and expectations. And so I think, yes, you can be friends with your child or teenager, but where I think it becomes challenging is as a parent to say, if I'm your friend, it's going to be hard for me to say no, because then we're not going to be friends still. You're not going to love me.
Is that confusing to the kid if you like flip flop on them?
Right.
Yeah,
so what they need and what they are craving, as I think most parents really do know, is that they want those boundaries and expectations. And for you to say no at certain times, that also instills security, safety, love, a foundation of all of those really important things, as opposed to saying yes, 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 because I think that will make you love me more as a parent. And that's hard.
There's this one response from somebody, Fruzy, I'm just going to put your entire response into my document. Well done. Overpowering the child, loving the child with conditions, expecting more than is his or her developing brain capable of, training of any kind of bad parenting, be respectful, gentle approach to the child, showing unconditional love, responsiveness with no exemptions. This person's been to therapy. Erica's like, yeah, that's all on my notepad.
Those are good.
That's on my notepad. Go through your own childhood traumas, break your cycles. Break your cycles is such a thing that sounds cliched right now. I mean, because internet and everything, but it's 100% probably the biggest thing you could be doing.
Yeah.
Don't put children into their own anxiety by yelling. Don't threaten punishment. Let's see. And if it happens, realizing that we are the idiots. Apologizing, letting them live through their emotions. Respect. Yeah. You know what? A lot of people tell their kids what they feel. That's interesting. Hold on. Don't tell your kids how they feel. Or they tell them what or who they are. You know what I mean by that?
I think you can affirm and praise kids, just reminding them of their love and that they are valued and worthy. I think sometimes there might be, if you're waiting for that pause, your own anxiety might fill that space and tell them what they're feeling, or tell them, because your kids might not know. Sometimes they do need that language, right? To say, are you feeling this way? Or I wonder if you're feeling this way or that way. I think one of the greatest gifts is to give that space for your kid, your child, teen to think. There's
a list here from a person who is a I guess they're a daycare person. This list alone, like I'm not going to read it, but when you don't feel good about society, these are the reasons. Some of these reasons are why. I'm just going to give you one of them. Pepsi in a baby bottle. There you go. So I'm going to assume that I am honestly going to assume that a person who puts that Pepsi in a baby bottle isn't listening to this podcast, and we're gonna raise the level of conversation beyond that. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's easy to say some people shouldn't probably be parents at certain times in their life, but man, that's tough. Okay, so
the overpowering, overprotecting.
Overpowering, overprotecting.
Overpowering, overprotecting. Could be a theme.
You can't. Also, you have to. I think you have to follow through. Like I think your children need to be able to believe that you're there. Like just, and I don't know what to call that exactly, but they have to be. There has to be some certainty that you're the one, right? Like when the bus is coming and we're all standing on the corner, you were definitely going to throw me out of the way and stand there and face the bus. Like you've got to be trusted.
Reliable, trustworthy.
Reliable. Yeah. No matter what that means, honestly. Like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, like you don't need to be like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and be reliable. You could be a ditch digger and be reliable. Like just consistent reliability, something that they can hang a hat on. Like say, I know this is going to happen. Like there's a lot of people in this thread that are like, you'd be surprised how many people forget their children at places, or never get them to anything on time, and that how that actually does affect the kid. Like if you have an anxious kid and you're always late, that's going to make the kid upset. Like, and so you kind of have to see. Let me say this, maybe. I think I'm going to type as I'm talking. You need to be the parent your kids need, not the parent you needed. Or even be the person you are. Like sometimes your kids are going to need things you're not too. You still have to find
intrinsically.
A way yeah, you have to do those things. It's all on you. Like it really is. It's the worst of all the things nature doesn't do right. Making penis happiness attached to owning a baby later. That's the worst thing in the world. Like I understand why it happens and everything, but terrible idea. Like really, you should get a baby at the end of a 20 question questionnaire you take, and you got to get like 95% of it right, and then maybe a baby pops into the room or something like that. And it's really hard to get them right. It shouldn't be like, oh, that felt good, baby. Because I mean, imagine if babies came from eating candy. We'd be knee deep in babies. What does that say about sex? Is candy better than sex? Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
I think, I just want to pause it because as we're listing all these things, I just wonder if you're, as a listener, if you're like feeling just overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But like, it's also, we're creating a list. We're not,
Listen, Eric is going to take this document and put it into real adult words, and then that's what we're going to make the podcast off of. And then I'm going to say silly shit in between while we're recording it. Don't you worry. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm not the adult in this situation. Don't really it is. I've said this before, but I'm always very interested in watching you think, because I will say the first thing that comes into my mind and then talk it through. You talk it through in your mind and then say the thing you mean. Like
I try.
Yeah. No, you don't just try. Stop it, Erica. That is what you do. If Erica and I were dating, I would sit across from her at a restaurant and go, just blurt it out. We'll figure it out later. She'd be like, I'm almost done formulating my thought. But there's a ton of, obviously, that is like you're well suited for what you do for a living, obviously. You know, and because
Thank you.
oh, you're very welcome. The way I chat it through, the spot where that could be a problem for somebody is because if you hear something I say that you like, that makes your brain light up, and I haven't gotten to the point yet, you could really just go, oh yeah, that guy said that. I'll be like, that's not what I said. You didn't hear the 7 words while I was still working it out. Erica's just going to say what she means, and you can count on it. That's why you're here. Because otherwise it'd just be me talking in circles. And then at the end going, oh my God, does it mean that?
But you land the plane. You do.
It's fun while we're listening to it on the podcast, but like it needs a little bit of both. I have to say that there was the rebellion episode we did when at the end I said, life's a crock pot and our potatoes aren't cooked yet.
Oh, yes.
And I looked at your face. You were like, oh my God, that's exactly right. And like you had this like lovely look on your face, and I felt so good. I was like, I did good.
Oh, you felt validated. Oh, well, yes, that was good. That was a good comment.
It's such a funny thing. I was like, oh, I did good. I felt good. I was like, yay. Okay, so I mean, we're through it here. Like, there's a ton of stuff to consider. You are gonna, like, for the lovely people, put a list together. I'm gonna send you links to the things that people said, and we'll put some of those things together in conversations. But I think mostly this is you from a professional perspective, and as a parent, and me from my perspective. And what I don't know if even people know about you, like you have younger children. And,
I do.
Yeah. So
I have a 5-year-old. She just turned 5.
Oh, wow.
Little girl, and a 8.5-year-old.
Yeah.
Both girls.
And my kids are 23 and 19. So, but you and I are similarly aged.
But I'm older. Yes.
I
am 45. I am 45. So,
yeah.
Yes.
So you were like, I'm not 52. Make sure they know that. But seriously, like, it's 2 different perspectives. With your professionalism mixed in, I think this is a great idea because my idea for this is that nobody launches into life at the exact right time. And the exact right time would be different for every person. That time would change once you couple up with another person. Like maybe you would be a perfect mom at 32, but I'd be a perfect dad at, I don't know, 25, but we don't meet like that. So, you know, everyone's going to get thrown into it where the happy penis feeling puts them. and then the baby comes out. And then immediately, I'm going to just tell you, your fear and your desire to do a good job and your fear are the overwhelming factors in the beginning when the baby's born. You're like, I don't want to screw this up, and I don't think I can do this, are probably what's swirling around in your head, even though I don't think the words come out like that from your mouth. You just have,
and
that
maybe a dose
feeling.
of love.
Oh my God, there's a ton of that involved, and happiness and all that other stuff, because you're not exhausted yet, so you can still be happy. But like all that feeling is there, and then it happens. Then it's a drop of water rolling down a hill, and it makes turns and gets absorbed and then gets rehydrated and then runs into a stick and gets diverted. And you don't get to sit around and philosophize every time one of those things happens. So there's got to be a simple bag of tricks that honestly, Erica, I think the cat's out of the bag. This is how I think about diabetes too, right? Like a small tool bag that you don't have to think about. Your hand goes in and you're holding it. You don't even know how it happened. You're like, I know what to do here. This is a pre-bolus. You know, I know what to do here. I need a temp basal here. I'm going to bolus for the fat here. If you have to think about those things, then they don't happen. But if they're things you understand and things that have been kind of put into your head through storytelling and podcasts and things like that, then when you need them, they're there. And because I can tell you, or Erica can tell you all she wants, not to do a thing in a situation. But the reason that's a thing people tell you not to do is because that's the human reaction in that situation. It's what people are going to do. And if you have to consciously not do it, you're probably going to fail at it. You need to, it just needs to happen. So I'm hoping that does this for people. I hope it helps them with their kids. And then I hope it helps them with their diabetes too, because I'll finish up here and then I want to hear what you have to say. I think after talking to so many people who are adults who have been children with diabetes, that parenting's more important with diabetes than even it may be in a regular situation, because there are a lot of extra things that can go wrong. And those things can lead to real bad health problems, not just you know, not liking blonde ladies or something like that. So, which is how I would feel if my blonde mom was yelling at me a lot. Anyway, like that I think is just, anyway, that's what I see for this, the bigger picture of it.
No, I appreciate that, because I was thinking, did we explain why we were kind of taking a broader view around parenting? And so the hope is that if we can address some of these common themes, that would ultimately help the parent-child dynamic in the diabetes management piece. Because sometimes we kind of narrow in on like, just tell them to pre-bolus, tell them to not eat, but we're not looking at the bigger picture of like, well, why is that dynamic occurring? So the hope is that the parenting picture would help the diabetes management.
I have an interview that just went up where this woman describes how she was diagnosed as a teen, and it was a long time ago, before management was very good. And they just didn't want to be bothered with it. So they would do background insulin and bolus when they got high, and that was it. Like, not even for food or anything like that. And she's on the show to talk about the fact that she's lost her sight, already had a couple of transplants, hoping to get another kidney, like that kind of stuff, right? Like really like the worst outcomes that you worry about when somebody tells you have diabetes. And her reasoning for the things that happen in her life are all very, like, I got every one of them. Everything she said, I was like, I understand this, right? But all I could think while she was talking was, well, that's what you saw. What really happened? Like, what got you to make that decision? Like, what did your parents do or not do? Or what did your life experience lead you towards that when this happened, you made this decision? And to me, that's about this. Listen, we're all going to be good parents at times, and we're all going to be bad parents at times. But the difference between your kid having a reaction that just leads them to be, I don't know, a dick to a parking attendant, and, not taking care of their blood sugar, there's a big difference between those two things. And I don't imagine that anybody has the time or the knowledge about diabetes or parenting while they're in it to conceive of those issues and find a way around them. So my idea is stop the problem before it starts, so that you're not just the person at 60 years old sitting around going, I should not have done that, and now this is what happened from it. And then you just sit there looking back, feeling bad the whole time. So I actually think this will be a fun conversation that will lead to some value for people. So anyway, I appreciate you doing it with me very much.
Yes. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Erica Forsyth is a therapist for families with diabetes. Check her out at ericaforsyth.com. Erica offers help for caregivers and families, therapy for tweens, teens, and adults, and so much more. ericaforsyth.com. I want to thank US Med for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. usmed.com/juicebox, or call 888-721-1514. Get your free benefits check and start getting your supplies the same way we do from US Med. You're going to get a new episode of this series once every week until it is completed. Today, of course, was the intro episode. I think I called Brainstorm. Parenting episode. How am I going to do this? All right, you're going to get to figure this out with me. I guess we'll brainstorm the rest of this. I need titles. Like I have like the next episode is going to be called Understanding Parenting Styles. Episode after that, Building Positive Communication. I'll tell you the next few in a moment, but I need a preface. Like, you know how it's like diabetes pro tip, pre-bolus. I need a blah, blah, blah colon for this. Parenting, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just parenting colon. This one's brainstorm, intro brainstorm, something like that. The next one, understanding parenting styles. Parenting, understanding parenting styles. Parenting, building positive communication. Yeah, maybe that works, right? Let me keep trying that with you. Parenting, self-care and personal growth for parents. Parenting, creating boundaries and expectations, right? Parenting, avoiding unintended consequences of inconsistent discipline and over-involved parenting. How in the hell am I going to make that a title? That I'm going to have to slow down. That one would be parenting, unintended consequences of inconsistent discipline and over-involved parenting. I'll call that one inconsistent and over-involved. Okay, I can do this. By the way, there's more episodes than just these 5 that I've mentioned here, but this is how it's going to go. And, you'll listen or you won't. You'll decide what you think. I hope you love it. I'm super excited. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I think that parenting in general and ideas, things that we don't talk about or think about sometimes, they impact how we do things. We could always maybe make better decisions. I know I can. And I think that extends to diabetes. So whether you find that Eric and I are specifically talking about diabetes in the moment or not, I think the information and the conversations will help you in both walks of your life. I hope you enjoy it. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Thanks so much for listening.